Hare Krishna, my friends. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to our weekly reading of Nectar Devotion in Bhaktiville. We have Bhakti Greece here next to me, and Bhakti Mimulus doing all of our tech stuff. And I know Kandita's on her way because she texted me half an hour ago. So she should be coming soon. So tonight we're reading chapter 37, Impetuses for Krishna's Service. And what could these things be? Well, his flute, dark cloud in the sky, prasadam, other devotees, and many other things. So let's read some more. It begins on page 306 of the book or page 343 of the PDF. Before we get started, let me offer my obeisances. Excuse me. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namani. I offer my respectful obeisances unto His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is very dear to Lord Krishna, having taken shelter at his lotus feet. Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha Ripasindubhye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. I also offer my respectful obeisances unto the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, here and everywhere. They are just like desire trees and can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Jai Prabhupada. So before I get started, last week there was a question about Uddhava. And the question was, is Uddhava a Brahmin or a Kshatriya? So I actually found an answer. Did anybody do their homework and look for that answer to that question? Oh, you looked all over? Yay! Okay, so this is what I found. In the 10th canto, Uddhava says, or he sings, it says this 10th canto, chapter 47, verse 58. Among all persons on earth, these cowherd women alone have actually perfected their embodied lives, for they have achieved the perfection of unalloyed love for Lord Govinda. Their pure love is hankered after by those who fear material existence, by great sages, and by ourselves as well. For one who has tasted the narrations of the infinite Lord, what is the use of taking birth as a high-class Brahmana, or even as Lord Brahma himself? And in the purport, and this is a purport not by Srila Prabhupada, but by disciples of Srila Prabhupada, it says, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti explains that here, that the term Brahma Janmabhihi, Brahminical births, refers to the threefold birth by 1, seminal parenthood, 2, sacred thread initiation, and 3, sacrificial initiation. These cannot compare to pure Krishna consciousness. In fact, Sri Uddhava, who spoke this verse, took birth as a pure Brahmana, but he deprecates this position in comparison to that of the exalted gopis. So it's just an aside, it doesn't explain, it just says he was born a Brahmin. So that was good. And Kandita is not here, so I'm going to text her real quick. Where are you? Okay, on to the reading. Chapter 37, Impetuses for Krishna's Service. The causeless mercy of Krishna, the dust of his lotus feet, his prasadam, and association with his devotees are some impetuses toward a devotee's engagement in transcendental loving service to the Lord. Krishna exhibited his causeless mercy when he was present at the departure of grandfather Bhishma. During the battle of Kurukshetra, Bhishma Dev, the grandfather of Arjuna, was lying on a bed of arrows before departing from this mortal world. When Lord Krishna, Maharaj Yudhishthir, and the other Pandavas approached Bhishmadev, he was very grateful to Lord Krishna, and he addressed the Brahmana military commander, Kripacharya, thus, quote, "My dear Kripacharya, just see the wonderful causeless mercy of Lord Krishna. I am most unfortunate. I have no qualifications. I was opposing Krishna's most intimate friend, Arjuna. I even tried to kill him. I have so many disqualifications, and yet the Lord is still so kind that he has come to see me at the last point of my life. He is worshipable by all great sages, but still, he is so merciful that he has come to see an abominable person like me." End quote. So, um, Bhishma Dev is laying there and he has so many arrows through his body that his body is lifted up off the ground because there's so many arrows in his body. But he hangs on to life until Krishna comes to see him. So it's for a warrior, it's a very glorious moment. For me, not so happy, but anyway, glorious time. Krishna comes to see him. All right, continuing on. Sometimes the vibration of Lord Krishna's flute, his bugling, his smiling, his footprints on the ground, the transcendental fragrance of his body, and the appearance of a new cloud in the sky also become impetuses for ecstatic love of him. In the Vidagdha Madhava, there is the following statement, quote, "When Krishna was playing on his flute, Baladev very anxiously declared, 'Just see, after hearing the transcendental sound of Krishna's flute, Indra, the king of heaven, is crying in his heavenly kingdom, and from his teardrops falling on the ground, Vrindavan appears to have become a celestial residence for the demigods." End quote. Ecstatic love for Krishna, which is known as Anubhava, is symptomized by the following signs. One becomes engaged exclusively in the service of the Lord, being attentive to carry out the orders of the Lord faithfully. One becomes undisturbed and non-envious in full transcendental loving service to the Lord, and one makes friendship with the devotees of the Lord who are situated in faithful service to him. All of these symptoms are called Anubhava, ecstatic love. The first symptom of Anubhava, or engagement in a particular type of service, is exemplified by Daruka, a servant of Krishna, who used to fan Krishna with a chamara, a bunch of hair. It's yak, yak hair, long hairs. When he was engaged in such service, he was filled with ecstatic love, and the symptoms of ecstatic love become manifest in his body. Just a second. But Daruka was so serious about his service that he checked all of these manifestations of ecstatic love and considered them hindrances to his engagement. He did not care very much for these manifestations, although they automatically developed. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 86th chapter, 27th verse, there is a statement of how Shrutadev, a Brahmana from the country called Mithila in northern India, would become so overpowered with joy as soon as he saw Krishna that immediately, after bowing to the Lord's lotus feet, he would stand up and begin to dance, raising his two arms above his head. One of the devotees of Lord Krishna once addressed him in this manner, quote, "My dear Lord, although you are not a professional dancer, by your dancing, you have so astonished us that we can certainly understand that you personally are the master of all dancing. Certainly you must have learned this dancing art directly from the goddess of love." End quote. When a devotee dances in ecstatic love, there are manifestations of symptoms which are called sattvika. Sattvika means that they are from the transcendental platform. They are not symptoms of material emotions. They come from the soul proper. I texted this paragraph to my daughter, who's a dancer. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 85th chapter, 30th verse, Shukadeva Goswami tells Maharaj Parikshit that after surrendering everything unto the lotus feet of Vamanadev, Bali Maharaj immediately caught hold of the lotus feet of the Lord and pressed them to his heart. Being overwhelmed with joy, he manifested all the symptoms of ecstatic love, with tears in his eyes and a faltering voice. In such expressions of ecstatic love, there are many other subsidiary symptoms, such as jubilation, withering, silence, disappointment, moroseness, reverence, thoughtfulness, remembrance, doubtfulness, confidence, eagerness, indifference, restlessness, impudence, shyness, inertness, illusion, madness, ghastliness, contemplation, dreaming, disease, and signs of death. When a devotee meets Krishna, there are symptoms of jubilation, pride, and perseverance. And when he is feeling great separation from Krishna, the symptoms of ghastliness, disease, and the signs of death become prominent. It is stated in the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th chapter, 4th verse, that when Lord Krishna returned from the battlefield of Kurukshetra to his home at Dwarka, all the residents of Dwarka began to talk with him, as a child talks lovingly to his father after the father's return from foreign countries. This is an example of jubilation. When Bahulashva, the king of Mithila, saw Krishna at his palace, he decided to offer his respects by bowing down before him at least 100 times, but he was so overcome by feelings of love that after bowing down only once, he forgot his position and could not rise up again. In the Skanda Purana, a devotee tells Lord Krishna, quote, "My dear Lord, as the sun evaporates all the water on the ground by its scorching heat, so my mental state has dried away the luster of my face and body due to separation from you." End quote. This is an example of withering in ecstatic love. An expression of disappointment was made by Indra, the king of heaven. When he saw the sun god, he told him, quote, "My dear sun god, your sunshine is very glorious because it reaches unto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, the master of the Yadu dynasty. I have thousands of eyes, but they have proved to be useless because not even for a moment are they able to see the lotus feet of the Lord." End quote. Reverential devotion for the Lord gradually increases and transforms itself into ecstatic love, then affection, and then attachment. In the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 38th chapter, 5th verse, Akrura says, quote, "Because I am going to see Lord Krishna today, all symptoms of inauspiciousness have already been killed. My life is now successful because I shall be able to offer my respects unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead." End quote. Another devotee, in ecstatic reverential affection, once said, quote, "When will that glorious day in my life come when it will be possible for me to go to the bank of the Yamuna and see Lord Sri Krishna playing there as a cowherd boy?" End quote. When there is no diminishing of this ecstatic love, and when it is freed from all kinds of doubt, that stage is called steady love for Krishna. In this stage, all expressions of unhappiness by the devotee are called anubhava, or ecstatic loving symptoms. The symptom of ecstatic affection with reverence felt by Bali Maharaj is expressed as follows, quote, "My dear Lord, you have simultaneously punished me and showed me your causeless mercy. My conclusion is that when I have taken shelter of your lotus feet, I shall never be disturbed in any condition of life. Whether you give me the opportunity to enjoy all the yogic perfections, or you put me into the most abominable condition of hellish life, I shall never be disturbed. End quote. Krishna himself, after seeing Bali Maharaj, told Uddhava, quote, "My dear friend, how can I express the glorious characteristics of Bali Maharaj, the son of Virochana? Although the king of the Suras, the demigods, was cursed by this son of Virochana, and although I cheated him in my incarnation as Vamana, taking away his dominions throughout the universe, and although I still criticize him for not fulfilling his promise, I have just now seen him in his kingdom, and he feelingly expressed his love for me." End quote. There's a footnote. Bali was a king of the demons who waged war against the demigods and nearly conquered the universe. When the demigods prayed for help, the Lord appeared as Vamanadev, a dwarf Brahmana, and asked Bali for 3 paces of land. Bali agreed, and Vamana covered all the worlds with his first 2 steps. Then he demanded to know where his 3rd pace was to be. Bali offered his own head beneath the Lord's foot, and thus became a Mahajana, or great devotee. So the first step covered the whole earth, and the second step covered the whole universe, and his foot poked a hole in the covering of the universe, and water flowed out. And everyone was so frightened that the water was going to just inundate everyone. And Lord Shiva moved over to the side and caught it in his hair, and then it came down more gently through his hair. And that water is the Ganges. And when you see pictures of Lord Shiva, you'll see sometimes a little woman sitting up in his hair, and that's Ganga, the Ganges, sitting up there in his hair. Anyway, so the third one was Bali Maharaj's head. He offered his head. All right, keep going. When such a feeling of love becomes intensified, it is called affection. Oh, there's a question. Greece asked, Lord Shiva is one of the forms of Krishna, right? And Bhakti says no. True, not. Please. My mistake. That's okay. We talked about a couple of chapters back that Lord Shiva is a very exalted devotee and has almost all the same qualities of Lord Krishna, but not all. Um, anyway, very exalted devotee. All right, one devotee told Dwaraka, the servant of Krishna, quote, "My dear Dwaraka, when you become like wood because of your separation from Krishna, it is not so wonderful. Whenever any devotee sees Krishna, his eyes become filled with water. And in separation, any devotee like you would become stunned, standing just like a wooden doll. That is not a very wonderful thing." End quote. There is a statement about Uddhava's symptoms of love. When he saw Lord Krishna, his eyes filled with tears and created a river which flowed down toward the sea of Krishna to offer tribute, as a wife offers tribute to her husband. When his body erupted with goose pimples, he appeared like the kadamba flower, and when he began to offer prayers, he appeared completely distinct from all other devotees. So, kadamba flower is a round ball like a walnut, and it's yellow and has all these little um, stems coming out of it. So it looks very fuzzy, but they're kind of big, kind of long, this little stems that come out. So they're saying that his body looks like a kadamba flower. That's cute. All right. When affection is symptomized by direct happiness and distress, that is called attraction. In such an attracted state of ecstatic love, one can face all kinds of disadvantages calmly. Even at the risk of death, such a devotee is never bereft of the transcendental loving service of the Lord. A glorious example of this ecstatic love was exhibited by King Parikshit when he was at the point of death. Although he was bereft of his entire kingdom, which spread all over the world, and although he was accepting not even a drop of water in the 7 days remaining to him, because he was engaged in hearing the transcendental pastimes of the Lord from Shukadeva Goswami, he was not in the least distressed. On the contrary, he was feeling direct transcendental ecstatic joy in association with Shukadeva Goswami. So King Parikshit, is the guy who um, was cursed to die within 7 days, and and so what he did was he gave up his kingdom and immediately sought the advice of sages as to what he should do, and that's the whole story of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Yes, he hears the whole Srimad Bhagavatam. That's what the Bhagavatam is Shukadeva Goswami telling him what he needs to know before he dies. And it took 7 days. And so he didn't even drink or eat anything, just sat and listened. All right, back to the text. One devotee has confidently expressed this opinion, quote, "If a drop of Lord Krishna's mercy can be bestowed upon me, then I shall feel completely carefree, even in the midst of a fire or an ocean. But if I become bereft of his causeless mercy, then even if I became the king of Dwarka, I would be simply an object for pinpricks." End quote. Devotees such as Maharaj Parikshit and Uddhava are all situated in ecstatic attraction on the basis of affection. And in that state of affection, a feeling of friendship becomes manifest. When Uddhava was freed from all material contamination, he saw the Lord, and his throat became choked up, and he could not speak. By the movements of his eyebrows alone, he was embracing the Lord. Such ecstatic love has been divided by great scholars into two groups, addition and subtraction. If a devotee is not directly associated with the Lord, it is called subtraction. In this state of love, one is constantly fixed with his mind at the lotus feet of the Lord. A devotee in this state becomes very eager to learn of the transcendental qualities of the Lord. The most important business of such a devotee is attaining the association of the Lord. In the Nrsimha Purana, there is a statement about King Ikshvaku, which illustrates this state of ecstatic love. Because of his great affection for Krishna, King Ikshvaku became greatly attached to the black cloud, the black deer, the deer's black eyes, and to the lotus flower, which is always compared to the eyes of the Lord. In the 10th canto, 38th chapter, 9th verse of the Bhagavatam, Akrura thinks, quote, "Since the Lord has now appeared to diminish the great burden of the world, and is now visible to everyone's eyes in his personal transcendental body, when we see him before us, is that not the ultimate perfection of our eyes?" End quote. In other words, Akrura realized that the perfection of the eyes is fulfilled when one is able to see Lord Krishna. Therefore, when Lord Krishna was visible on the earth by direct appearance, everyone who saw him surely attained perfection of sight. In the Krishna Karnamrita, written by Bilva Mangala Thakur, there is this expression of eagerness in ecstatic love. Quote, "How miserable it is, my dear Krishna, O friend of the hopeless. O merciful Lord, how can I pass these thankless days without seeing you?" End quote. A similar sentiment was expressed by Uddhava when he wrote a letter to Krishna and said, quote, "My dear Supreme King of Braj, you are the vision of nectar for the eyes, and without seeing your lotus feet and the effulgence of your body, my mind is always morose. I cannot perceive any peace under any circumstances. Besides that, I am feeling every moment's separation to be like the duration of many, many long years." End quote. In the Krishna Karnamrita, it is also said, quote, "My dear Lord, you are the ocean of mercy. With my arms placed upon my head, I am bowing down before you. With all humility and sincerity, I am praying unto you, my Lord. Would you be pleased just to sprinkle a little of the water of your glance upon me? That will be a great satisfaction." Devotee of the Lord said, quote, "When even Shashi Shekara, Lord Shiva, is unable to see you, what chance is there for me, who am lower than an ordinary worm? I have only committed misdeeds. I know that I am not fit at all to offer my prayers to you, but because you are known as Dinabandhu, friend of the fallen, I humbly pray that you will kindly purify me by the beams of your transcendental glance. If I become thoroughly bathed by your merciful glance, then I may be saved. Therefore, my Lord, I am requesting you to please bestow upon me your merciful glance." End quote. Well, I think we'll stop right there. I do want to add something. We also pray for the sidelong glance of Srimati Radharani. Let me just read this one verse. O Srimati Radhika, who is glorified by great sages, O you who dispel the lamentation of the three worlds, whose lotus face blossoms with a humorous smile, and who sports in the kunjas, O beloved daughter of the king of Braj, when will you make me the recipient of your merciful sidelong glance? Jai. All right, we'll stop there. Um, Sorry about all the digressions, but there were so many good little stories inside what was in the text. I just had to say them. So, any questions, comments, further homework? You like the extras? Oh, great. Thank you. I'm glad. Fill in the blanks. It's true. If you don't know all the stories, then the references don't mean anything. Thanks. Yeah, the Kadamba tree. I didn't know that for a long time until I started painting and I wanted to paint Kadamba trees. I'm like, oh, look at those. They're fluffy little things. The scientific name I can look up. I'll do it for homework of the Kadamba tree. But you can look it up, just Kadamba tree, India. Do a search for that. I'm sure you'll find it. Yeah, it's very popular. So I painted a backdrop behind my deities, and so I have a Kadamba tree on a little forest grove of Kadamba trees on Radharani's side. And on Krishna's side, I have a Tamal tree because the Tamal tree is likened to be the same color as Krishna. So those two trees are heavily referenced in stories about Radha and Krishna. So we'll stop there. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, my friends. Hare Krishna.